Welcome to this episode of Life Science Success. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I am a digital marketer in life sciences. And before we get started today in our interview, I just wanted to play a quick message from our sponsor.
At the epicenter of the next breakthrough in biotechnology. That moment could happen for you this October at Bio on the Bayou 2025, where Southern innovation meets scientific excellence in the heart of New Orleans. Over 300 of the brightest minds in biotech are coming together for 2 extraordinary days in New Orleans. We're talking groundbreaking research from powerhouses like Tulane, Auburn, the University of Mississippi, Xavier University of Louisiana, and LSU Health. Expect revolutionary technologies, cutting-edge research, and industry-shaping expert panels that you won't find at any other event, plus networking opportunities that could transform your career. This isn't just another conference. It's an intensive 2-day summit where real partnerships form. We leverage the cutting-edge Partnering One platform to ensure that you'll connect with exactly the right people, whether you're seeking investors, research partners, or your next big opportunity. The future of biotechnology is being shaped right here in the broader Gulf South and having a global impact. Will you be part of it? Mark your calendar for October 28th and 29th. Head to bioonthebayou.com right now and secure your spot for the most exciting biotechnology event of 2025. The next breakthrough could be yours. Bio on the Bayou 2025. Register today.
In this episode of Life Science Success podcast, my guest is Jörg Vogel. He's the VP of Open Innovation at Aquaporin AS, who leads the company's innovation efforts through collaborative research development in advancing groundbreaking Aquaporin Inside technology. So with that, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you as well. And would you mind just taking a little bit of time and you just tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself and also sort of what led you to this line of work?
So basically, is my background is I'm a German engineer, but now living and working in Denmark. What led me to Aquaporin was a bit of a coincidence, you could say. It's like I was studying my semester abroad here in Denmark, just to collect more input from another background. My actual education was actually in mechatronics, so like more of a mechanical engineer. But then I met these two, like the founder and the scientific officer of a newly founded company called Aquaporin, and they were looking for someone to help them develop a technology and making some kind of like first physical support structures for their like lipid membranes to integrate transmembrane proteins. And that's how my journey in Aquaporin started. That was back in 2007, where I started as a student here. And I did my PhD in Aquaporin as well, and went then from, you could say, mechanical engineering to protein science, physics, chemistry, environmental engineering, process engineering. So basically, it's like touching upon lots of fields to get to where we are now, where we basically Aquaporin has the first, well, you could say biomimetic membrane, like the first membrane with aquaporin proteins as an enabler in them. And I was part of that journey so far.
And I mean, it has to be good to have like an actual business example as you're going through school as well, in that light that you're getting to grow in the company, but you're also getting an education in another way as well.
Yes, definitely. So like the journey here kind of shaped who I am, you could say. It's like I had to grow up together with the company. So basically I started as a student, having kind of like a theoretical background, trying my first practical experiences, you could say, and then growing with the company from like a normal researcher to like a project manager to department or group manager or department manager, and then a VP, and leading the whole R&D department. And by growing with the company, I also had to grow the company. So like I kind of built some parts of the R&D department. I had to like, okay, how do we want to do things, and how do we want to maybe approach customers, and like had to deal with a lot of change as well, because as you grow, you the company changes, the culture changes also in that sense, especially once you reach your IPO that we had in 21, and then you are a commercial entity or more commercial entity trying to like make ends meet.
And so let's talk a little bit about Aquaporin's technology, but also the company itself. So it's used from water purification to industrial processes. How does the technology allow it to be adapted to so many diverse uses?
So basically, the core technology that we have is the aquaporin protein. That's our core that works in the membrane. And as such, it's not very industry specific, you could say, or whatever waste or product stream or water stream you have. It's basically a membrane that separates water from everything else. So like from all dissolved compounds that are in there. So if you process waste streams, or you will process product streams, or you process food and beverage juices, for example, it doesn't really make a big difference to the membrane in itself. Also, if you look at it from our perspective, like the aquaporin protein is the protein that sits in every cell membrane and every living cell. And cells are exposed to pure water, to blood, to waste, like not only human, but also in plants and everywhere. There's a protein, and that's this water channel, aquaporin, what we harvest and utilize in our membrane. So it's like it's not specific to an industry, it's specific to water.
And I guess can you explain a little bit more, about how the membrane technology is applied across these different industries?
Sure. There's, you could say, like two fundamental kind of processes in filtering water. Like the first one is the established, what's called an reverse osmosis, where you basically filter water through a membrane by applying a pressure. So you press water against the osmotic gradient. That's why it's called reverse osmosis. And that's as I said, the industry standard. For example, you have it in desalination, or you have it in generating process water in biotech, in clean tech, in the semiconductor industry as well. Whenever you need like clean water, you also have usually like an RO membrane involved somewhere. So like there we have the pressure driven one. But we also spearheading the development of what's called forward osmosis, which is basically just osmosis. Like here you utilize the osmotic pressure difference between two liquids to draw out water off a contaminated source. So you dewater a solution by applying a chemical potential difference, like osmotic pressure difference. And here, of course, the aquaporin, that's where they actually come from, right? Like what our cells do, how they filter water. It's not by applying a huge pressure. It's basically by having the osmotic potential difference, and then like transporting water from low osmotic pressure to higher osmotic pressure. And this technology is not yet an industry standard. So we are trying to establish it well, because it has lots of advantages and it has lots of potential, especially where we see the biggest one is in food and beverage processing, making high quality concentrates. It's like if you don't heat up your solutions, you keep everything that's in them, because heating usually changes the profile, right? So there is certain like advantages to that. We also use it, for example, in our space operations, right? Like making water recovery from whatever contaminated source you have on a space station, for example. That's usually yellow, and there, of course, since you don't have to use high pressure pumps and like all this specialized equipment, you save weight and energy, which is quite essential for space travel. So
Very
there, of
good.
course, the membranes make a big difference, especially because they are this high separation, high level of separation.
Mm. And the other question I have is with regards to your overall product development and the company's commitment to sustainability. How does
Mhm.
that influence your products as well in different sectors? And then what challenges, also do you have in adapting the technology to be able to um, meet each industry's needs?
Mhm. Mhm. Well, if you start at the beginning in that sense, right? Like we are already saying we want to rethink water with biotechnology. So it's like we actually got inspired by having the most efficient water filter there is on Earth, this aquaporin protein, and how to utilize that, right? So we want to make water more accessible by making this filtration technology more efficient with that protein channel, because then you also don't have the limitations of kind of what polymers are used and other things, because it's a natural ingredient already. Of course, we have to like build around it, but like on one hand, when we say we want to make it more efficient, it's like this protein channel enables us to maybe or to lower the resistance of water going through a membrane, which means then you can filter water with less energy. Like maybe you have to use a bit less pressure than with traditional membranes, which of course helps to get a lower CO2 footprint, but also to make it more accessible to others, um, by having lots of, like, for example, what my area is open innovation. So we're also trying to see like where can our membranes help in non-traditional setting, not only like to filter water that's needed in industry, but like how can we help and contribute to like closing this water loop, make water more circular. So like there is always water coming out somewhere and has to go in somewhere. So like instead of like throwing it out and then picking it in from a clean source, can we clean it with our technology and of course with complementary technologies, um, to help in closing the loop. So we work a lot with like academia, other research institutes, like also companies, but also NGOs to like see is there benefit to it. More and more goes also in like if you have a certain technology that can concentrate to a high degree, then you also have the possibility to harvest something. Like wastewater is not necessarily waste. There's a lot of compounds in there that we could harvest. So like we have a couple of projects where partners then try to harvest something out of this stream that's concentrated. And the more it's concentrated, the higher your concentration of that target. So we think that in our overall area, of course, of our business is like where can we make a contribution, to make, well, the word more sustainable, you could say. And that even includes if you have water filtration reliably and maybe also efficient water filtration, then you don't need plastic bottles, for example. Like it's better to drink filtered water like that you filter on site than to have it shipped around in plastic bottles.
Hmm. Yeah, and it'd be interesting. It's an interesting application, as well. I mean, especially given all of us who travel, around and yeah, I
Mm.
mean, frequently in airports, I'm carrying a water bottle and refilling it as we go through as well. And
Mm.
yeah, it definitely is something that's needed across around the world as well for anybody that needs water. More
Mhm.
specifically, whenever you look at life sciences, how is your technology applied inside of life sciences?
On life sciences, especially, kind of like I would say is like we are maybe like could look at three different areas. And of course, always you need to provide clean water for like your production, for even for cleaning purposes. You need to have like this process water. And second is you can have product concentration. So you also need to sometimes remove water. In many processes, water is basically just like a buffer or a carrier that you have to like separate at some point. And of course, then it's water reuse as well, as I mentioned beforehand already. So like it's not, and there I can't say that's not only life science specific, but like we had some couple of projects where we especially looked into the life sciences as well. Also because we use a protein in it. So like people are interested, can it do something different than our normal membranes? And like, oh, we can separate water, like we can't separate like certain compounds yet.
Yeah, it's I'm very familiar with like using media to separate to separate compounds as well,
Mhm.
whenever we go through typical bioprocessing. But yes, I could see where there would be some interest in terms of trying to see if there's any further application as well.
Mhm.
Um, do you know, is there a way that your technology is being used to improve specific processes within biotechnologies like cell culture, or protein separation, or purification today?
Um, Actually, like it's not used in those ones today. We do have had a couple of projects, but like there, for example, when we looked at once a project together with GSK and Merck, where we looked at like waste streams from vaccine production to like loop it back into the process. And we have basically we don't have like a specific process within that biotechnology, but we have, you could say, like a project within another field of, you could say, pharma, because like we're looking at dialysis in itself, making dialysis more sustainable, because it's not really sustainable if you look at it. It's like it's about what 200 liters per patient per treatment or something of water that you have to use. You have to filter that, and then you have waste coming out. So we are part of actually a big EU consortium looking at the like kidney care in general. So like there's people looking at the legislation side. There's people looking at the actual devices that you use, and like we are looking at water. So like, can
Mm.
you reuse water from those streams, or can you make water by not having like all this process technology in front that to ensure clean water, because you have your dialysate, you have to dilute and then run it through your dialysis. So there actually like the aim is like, if you can cut out some of the processing steps, we could contribute to maybe having a better home dialysis or a better offer for home dialysis, or even portable at some point, which is a bit further in the future, but like it is, it is there, and it would be a great pleasure to be part of it, because that would make lives of patients so much better. And that's what it's all about. That's what I'm also like burning for, you could say, is like, how can we contribute, not even the traditional just water, but like how can we apply technology across different areas where it wasn't used before to like make an impact.
What does a collaboration effort with Aquaporin look like? If a company comes to you, I guess how do they get started? What does that typically look like?
Well, the easiest for us is always they come with a bag of money and then they pay us to do something. But that's usually not the case. No, but like we are very open. Like that's what I'm also doing, like open innovation. Like we always had an approach towards innovation in an open setting. Like actually our core technology is like how we integrate aquaporins into membranes was developed in a collaboration project with a company, with the academia and research institute. So we're very open in that sense. And we approach it usually like if it's an earlier research, or if there's quite some work that has to be done, we usually also try to like, can we get an academia partner in there, because they have lots of smart heads and lots of equipment where we can complement each other. And then of course, can we get like third-party funding? So like we're running lots of EU projects, Danish funded projects. We had many projects with PUB or with the funding authorities in Singapore, where we have a subsidiary. So the approach is like, can we make a consortium that like has ideally the whole value chain in there? So like going from, it's like, how can you make it in early stages in lab tests with maybe academia, and then have it all the way to the end customer saying like, what is our need actually? And then like build it up there and like have a research project around this. And we had quite some success with this. Like even our current main product in the brackish water market, this membrane there, was developed and is actually now marketed together with partners that we got through these, you could say like private public partnerships, through these open innovation approaches. So like you also know whom you're dealing with. They have an interest in innovation, and let's drive innovation together in that sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would be very exciting to have, all of those different components, both industry and academia, together as well during a development project. I would imagine aligning all of those thoughts as well and trying to get everybody to work together. It has to also, provide its own set of challenges, I would imagine, in terms of innovating something new as well.
It's always challenging to like get the consortium then to agree on like, where are the boundaries, what's my invention, what's your invention, and how do we, but like it's usually all secured beforehand, and everybody like that has the interest in joining such a project is on board and knows that there is some compromises to be done. Like there, it's a common effort, and if you don't want to make a common effort and you don't join such a project, it's pretty easy. But like personally, I think that's the best way to drive innovation, is to like have it open and to draw in experiences from other areas as well. And also like for companies, it's you need a value chain anyways, right? Like you have suppliers and you have customers, and usually if you draw them in, like you get a better understanding what's actually needed, which is quite useful to have. And to be honest, academia always is a good partner, although they might be sometimes challenging in regards to administration or other things, but like we have great experiences. We also like what I'm also driving is the what's called the Aquaporin Academy for us, where we have usually students doing their interns, bachelor, master, PhDs with us, or in collaboration with us, which is actually, we get things done. We get more knowledge on the basic knowledge as well, on our understanding of our technology. And to be honest, it's also a good talent pool. We hire students directly because no onboarding, you know how they work. So that's quite a useful thing. Well, I'm one of the examples, right? Like some stick around for a while.
That's what I was thinking as well. What are some of the more exciting projects that you're currently working on?
Well, as I said, like the kidney project is actually quite interesting. We have lots of like really good water projects as well, where we look into to harvesting resources. But the kidney project is actually it's something that's not where traditional water companies are not really that much interested in, right? Like because it's basically you have your RO that like feeds water into that kidney and to the dialysis center. That's it. But like, how can you change that? Like, how can you like get streams, maybe reuse some of the streams that are in there, make it more efficient, and then even downscale it so it's actually better. Like there is home dialysis where you have like a little RO unit that runs, but usually you have to like, that's noisy or that's kind of heavy. It still has to provide a like, kind of pressure, right, to filter. And if you can change that to something simpler and more user friendly, then that's a big step forward. So that's exciting. And then, of course, one project that's very exciting and that we just basically started last year, we just finished the first year of that project, is to replace aquaporins with other transmembrane proteins. That's, of course, early research, low TRL level. but that would open up the space for targeted separation. Like now we target water. Well, that exists also water membranes, but like, can we use other transmembrane protein to target other things, other compounds? Nature has a wide variety of channels, and then you can even tailor some channels yourself. And we have a technology that like utilizes already one channel. We can incorporate it in a membrane and filter, well, water. But if you use other channels, like we can enable like other compounds, we can harvest things. We can, by allowing only one compound through, you could imagine you could do some drug screening as well in that sense. Or you can have help into the separation. Like you could separate compounds from a stream without having to go through the cumbersome like affinity columns, for example, what you have in biotechnology or bioprocessing. That would be interesting. Like just imagine you have like different membranes and there are different specificities. And then you just like, here we harvest this one, there I harvest that one, and there I harvest that one, just by running through my media. It's futuristic, and we're not there yet, but that's the potential I see, and that is exciting.
But I think, yeah, and I guess from my outsider perspective, right? So, given that everybody's interested in running small batches now, I mean, I feel like, the industry as a whole has made this sort of shift anyway from, sort of large batch, processing with, giant stainless steel columns, processing drugs versus, today where you have lots of plastics being used and things like that in that same process. I could see, if you had a technology that did that, I mean, it would probably be of interest to a lot of people because, everybody I think has this idea of, hey, if I could run, super small batches or personalized batches for, people that are looking for certain things, and be able to do it one off, it would be a much better place as well, given where the
Yeah.
industry's headed. So yeah.
And there, of course, membrane industry offers something that's very useful because it's easily scalable. It's like if you put in like one small membrane or a big one or 10 big ones, does make a small difference in the processing time and so on, but like not in well, capex wise, it's not that much, and so on. Like, so it's actually quite an interesting potential then. Like you don't have to have your fixed columns. Like you can multiply. Like just put two membranes in parallel, for example.
Absolutely. So just a few questions on you. What inspires you?
I think I touched a lot on it already. It's like everything that has to do with innovation and new thinking, especially across disciplines, for like different disciplines. Like as I mentioned, like I studied mechatronics. That was already like a crossover between IT, electrical, and mechanical engineering. Then I went into what's called lab on chip systems, like downsizing analysis equipment on chip size, where then like of course some biotech you could come in. And then I went to Aquaporin with proteins, had to like do chemistry because membranes are basically polymers. So I had to like learn some chemistry. I had to go into environmental engineering and process engineering and so on and so forth. And like actually now I'm like complementing that further with an executive MBA. So I also know the other side of the coin, like not only the technology, but also like how can I establish that on a market, or how can I develop that technology by having interest from the market, and like how to market that. So it's like everything that is coming together in lots of like diverse backgrounds, like diverse kind of ideas, making new products, making new ideas come to life. That's kind of where I feel most comfortable and like where I want to spend my time on.
Absolutely. And what concerns you?
Well, you could if you continue on that thought, right? Like when I say like collaboration and open-mindedness is key, we're like in these days the concerns are that we are kind of like developing, or like the world is developing in a direction where that's maybe not in focus anymore, or maybe more like closed borders, terrorists, nationalistic thinking is kind of not what excites me. Like this concerns me. It's like, what will, if we really go that way, like how, like if we hinder free exchange of ideas also between countries and between nations, it's like that will, in my eyes, hinder progress.
Mm.
Might have some short-term effects, but that are positive for some people. But I mean, like I'm a big fan of like having so many people as possible involved to like drive new ideas. So, and you can see that that it works as well. Like right now, and we also work with space applications, right? On ISS, Russians and like Europeans and Americans are working together just fine. You know, like they don't care about everything else. They basically care about advancing the science there. So and of course, which is like an a concern, but also maybe an opportunity in itself, is climate change, right? Like it's from my side, I have no doubt that it's real, and we are kind of running an unsustainable business with our planet right now. But there's solutions, I think.
Yeah, and uh, I definitely see the sort of the bifurcated nature of the world, as well, and that we need to find a way to work and collaborate together. I do feel like science has been a really good example of that for a long time, right? I mean,
Mhm.
the sharing of ideas, and with the understanding, right, that there's plenty of people that sort of isolate things that are intellectual property or whatever to make sure that their business is sustained as well. I mean, it just would be to provide the MBA aspect side of, of this as well, is that I
Right.
certainly understand the business aspects. However,
Def-
I think
def-
with grounded science and the ability to share ideas, we could be so much more
mm.
collaborative.
No, but like I think scientists have been quite good. I have to agree with you there. It's like so I don't want to lose that, and I think like most scientists have the same idea, that
Mm.
like we have to keep on collaborating. You can see that like every conference you go to, is a big hub of like languages and diversities and collaboration spirit. Like I've met so many people that you then could start like a small research project on, or that were happy to share their sight on things, or their view on things, their newest approaches. But of course, I'm all for that. You need to protect your IP to some extent. Like Aquaporin wouldn't have been there if we don't have patents, for example. Like who would invest in a company that doesn't have protects their most valuable resource?
Also true. Well, thank you for sharing that. And last question: what excites you?
Um, Well, you could say like the same thing that like kind of inspires me and concerns me, also excites me. Like as I said, like climate change, for example, like we have a problem, which is a big concern. But what excites me is all the solutions that come out. I've been part
Mm.
of like panels in what's called the tech tour here in Europe, where like small companies pitch their solutions and like look for investors and so on. And I've been a panel member, for example, there. And like when you see like how many ingenious ideas pop up, maybe not all get funded, maybe not all get successful, but like there's quite some buzz, and like the challenges that come also spark ideas and innovation. So like that's the really exciting thing, right? So there is not a shortage of ideas, which you could clearly see is like it excites me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's one of the things I think I took away most from my PhD was that for the most part, um, you're not always just answering a question. You're also providing kind of the pathway that somebody else is going to answer their question, and maybe the next person will answer their question. So it's almost like
Mhm.
reflections in a mirror. It sort of leads, one thing leads to the next, and it definitely is, and it makes the world even more exciting, because then you sort of understand that ideas can continue to advance over time with brighter and brighter minds, always thinking about what comes next.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you could say like that's how Aquaporin came to be as well, right? Like when Peter Ager like researched or basically discovered the aquaporin protein, he was not looking for the aquaporin protein. He was looking for something else. He had a complete different aim, and then by chance, as it goes with big discoveries, he like discovered aquaporin protein and got the Nobel Prize for it. And then like our founder basically like saw that and it's like, well, why not use that tool to like make membranes? So it's like one accidental discovery leads to another, and then we probably spark some other ideas that people take up and make their own. So like that's really nice. You are completely right. One sparks the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. It is something that makes all of this and science as a whole exciting. So, Jörg Vogel, thank you so much for being a guest on the Life Science Success podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here and for sharing your thoughts about water filtration, but also just overall how these tools and technologies might be used even more broadly in life sciences. So, thank you for that.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.